Hi, and welcome to InfoSec Pros. I'm Kayne, Field CISO at Hyperproof, and I'm joined today by two special guests, Carmen Marsh, the President and CEO at United Cybersecurity Alliance, and later in the episode, we'll be joined by Confidence Staveley, the founder of CyberSafe Foundation and winner of the prestigious Cybersecurity Woman of the Year Award for 2023. Welcome to the show, Carmen.
Thank you. And I was so excited. I've been waiting for this show this whole week, actually a couple of weeks since we started talking. So, Kane, you and I have a history. I think you're going to be talking about it in a little bit. But yeah, I'm just glad to be here and get a conversation started.
Yeah, this is going to be so much fun. And because this is a live stream, if you've got a question for Carmen or for Confidence or me, drop it in the comments on either LinkedIn or on YouTube, and we'll be taking these as we go. So as Carmen said, she and I met about a decade ago, wow, when we tried setting up a nonprofit to raise awareness for diversity in cybersecurity. And after a few events, I realized I was terrible at fundraising. So instead, I landed in a CISO role while Carmen secured funding from Craig Newmark of Craigslist for her current projects. So Carmen, tell us a little bit about your work with the United Cybersecurity Alliance and the Cybersecurity Woman of the Year Award.
Absolutely. So, if you remember when we first started with our Include Cybersecurity project, at that time I had a consulting company, cyber risk management planning company locally here. And we wanted to really just look into why there aren't any women, that we want to hire. We want to hire more women into the jobs with our company. So I would say every event, every conference over time, we had a conversation. How do we close the gap, gender gap, talent gap, of course, but gender gap in cybersecurity? And there's a lot of talking. So we talk, and conversations. And at some point, I just said, you know what? I don't want to talk anymore. Who are people that are doing anything? I want to be the person that's actually going to take action. So in 2018, I decided, I said, okay, I just need to do something. So I will launch a program that's called 100 Women in 100 Days Cybersecurity Career Accelerator. And I announced on LinkedIn, I said, this is something that we need. We need to find a way to bring more women into the field. So what do we do? There was also a lot of naysayers saying, why are you trying so hard? Tried so hard to get women into the field, and they're not interested. I don't think women in general are not interested in cybersecurity or information security. So I've been fighting those trolls, you know. But after I have posted my announcement on LinkedIn, there was such interest, and there were so many women. I would say within first hour, I had about 60 message in my inbox saying, how do I sign up?
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I didn't even know how I'm going to launch it. I knew I needed to raise money. I didn't know where I'm going to get the money. But I said, I know I'm going to do this. I have to do this. So, to all those trolls and naysayers on social media, I immediately posted, at any point in time you want to argue that women are not interested in cybersecurity, here's to you. Look at all the women just signed up.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really good feeling. Then the next step was, okay, so now I need to figure out exactly who's going to fund this program and what is going to be included in the training curriculum. What was really important for me is understanding, being in InfoSec, is you have to have combination, right? So hiring managers are looking for certifications. They're looking for, of course, hands-on was a big thing, probably the biggest thing in this. And then also, what else do we bring together? Because we wanted to make sure that our students, once they graduate, first of all, in my mind, it was going to be a fast track. There are things that we can do to fast track the upskilling and training. But what's going to be part of this? So I have been talking to hiring manager. I also knew what we were looking for, in our company. So that took a little time. And then I said, okay, what do I do? I need money. So let's go fundraising.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the people in my LinkedIn connection was Craig Newmark. So I knew that he was very involved in philanthropy, and he knew a lot about how to actually fund the program. So I reached out to him and I said, Craig, this is what I'm doing. I wanted to upskill women for jobs in cybersecurity. I have never done fundraising. What advice can you give me, so I can raise money and actually make this a reality? And I will tell you, within less than an hour, he responded to me and said, "Tell me more. Here's my email." So we start talking through email, and probably about 4 or 5 months to kind of, for him to understand, for me to put the curriculum together, for him to understand what the program is all about. I think the big thing for Craig was figuring out what's the end of, once our students graduate, what's going to happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
One thing is providing training and upskilling, but then where are they going to get the foot in the door, right? I think that was one of the most important things for him, is like, I see there's training out there. This is a really good program because it's very, very sort of a wholesome program. You really put it well together. But what happens, at the end? So him and I met with Intel. We met with Microsoft. We met with a few of the large tech companies and had these conversations and built partnerships, because I think that was something that we just had to have to close the loop. Anyway, at the end of that, once we had all these conversations, he said, "So here's the money. I'm happy what you put together. It makes a lot of sense. You have a support in partnerships. No, go do your thing." And so, yeah, we launched our first program in 2019. And ever since then, I mean, we almost every year, we launch 1 or 2 programs, depending on what grant money we get.
Yeah, before the show, I think you'd said that you'd placed about 500 women through your Cybersecurity Accelerator program, and I believe you said something about expansion to Japan next year?
Yes, actually, it's in talks right now. So we have our partners in Japan, Deloitte, PwC, Amazon, as well as Intel. Intel from here. We have a partnership and conversations going to launch our pilot in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
If we can make it happy this year, we're going to launch it this year. If not, it's going to be the first part of next year. But that's in conversations. We've had these talks for a while, but then of course the pandemic happened, and now we have it back up. I went to Japan twice last year, having conversations with all of these partners, and I mean, we are on solid grounds now, and we just need to take it to the next level.
That's fantastic. Can we drop a link to your program in our show notes, or can you tell us where people could find the program?
Absolutely. And let's see, I think I had that. Here we go. I just put the link in there, so, and I don't know who sees what, but it's in the chat.
Okay, fantastic. And it's leadmindintelligence.com, 100 women in 100 days.
Yeah.
And there's some slashes in there. And we'll make sure we also get that in the show notes, as opposed to me just saying it out loud. But before we bring on our next guest, Confidence, tell us a little bit about how the two of you met, because I think that includes a castle in Scotland.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. But it was even prior to that. Confidence has won 2 of our awards, the Cybersecurity Woman of the Year awards in Las Vegas. So for the last 6 years, we've had Cybersecurity Woman of the Year awards at Black Hat, growing tremendously. Initially, it started just within U.S. And now we have nominees from 62 different countries on average. Wow. So it's big. It's grown so much, and we've seen such talents. It's become so competitive. But let me just say why we started in the first place. So after we launched our career accelerator for women, I felt like there's still a little bit intimidation associated with jobs in cybersecurity. So I felt like if we bring all these women that are doing a fantastic job in the field currently to the forefront, highlight them, just put them in a spotlight, then other women would look and say, okay, if I can see her, I can be her, right? It's kind of like it's a mind thing. It's empowering women to say, I can take a chance on this, even if it seems intimidating. I can do this. So that's how we initially started it, and we also made it completely, like, we wanted to make it glamour, because just because you're technical, it doesn't mean that you don't like makeup and be a girly girl, right? It goes all together. So we did the first gala, and I wasn't sure, because our community can be pretty casual, the way we dress and all. But I absolutely said, let's give it a try. Let's do full black tie outfit. Let's do it all the way. And I can't tell you how happy I was that first event. I am seeing these young girls with a green hair, blue hair, red hair, tattoos on their arms, and they have the full-on long, beautiful ball gown on. And there's so many of them, like, oh my gosh, it actually works. It's good. I can't tell you how excited I was, to see that it was something that was needed. And a lot of them came to me after and say, thank you for providing this platform. Thank you for doing this for us, because I think it's building the community. It's bringing us together. It's empowering us. It's building the sisterhood. And so, yeah, we've had those awards for about 6 years. And then we launched a new award event, or program, I would say. It's called Cybersecurity Woman of the World Awards. And this one, it's going to be the first one was last year in Scotland, Aberdeen. Beautiful setting. I mean, it was magical. And we really crowned the prince. Princess. We crowned the queen of cybersecurity, and that was Confidence. That's for the first time we actually met in person. But like I said, Confidence won two other awards in Las Vegas. One was for barrier breaker, I believe, and the other one was for leader of the year. So, but last year, for the first time, we met in person, and it was magical. Yeah, put the castle in the picture. This global sisterhood. We had a lot of representation from Middle East. We had our friends from Europe and US. We all came together. It was fantastic. And I know Confidence will tell her side of the story and how that changed her life in a big way. We must touch upon that, because it's life changing, and
Undoubtedly.
to bring that. So I'm excited to bring Confidence into the conversation, and she's amazing.
So am I. And even though this isn't a castle in Scotland, we've at least got a space to talk. So with that, let's bring in Confidence. That's a heck of a setup for her. Welcome to the show, Confidence. And I've got to say, I am thrilled to have you here alongside Carmen. And I also want to say, I love your cooking-themed API security YouTube show.
Thank you so much, Kayne, and thank you so much, Carmen, for being so graceful and kind.
So before you came on, you were in the green room, but Carmen was telling us about how the two of you met. And I understand as context that winning Cybersecurity Woman of the Year in 2023 helped with your move to the United States. Can you share some of that journey with us?
Oof. You may not have picked up on something small, but Carmen had said something about us meeting at the castle for the first time in person. And that's because I'd had so many visa issues, just even coming to receive the Cybersecurity Woman of the Year awards that I had won. So these were things that, just didn't make sense. Like I was this person doing amazing work, and just seeing Carmen also just spotlight and do the amazing thing of making sure people are aware about the work women are doing across the world, our competence level in cybersecurity, and then something as simple as a visa to then go and be in those places to speak at events, for example, was a challenge. And so it just dawned on me at some point. I consulted with some people, and then they're like, "You won this award. It's a global award. How are you not leveraging that to show how exceptional you are to immigration, and just show them that, okay, I'm interested in coming to your country. I'm exceptional. Get me in." And that's exactly what we did. The type of visa that I got at the end of the day is something that nicknamed the Einstein visa. So basically, so people who are exceptional. And one of the key things I was able to show or prove that I was exceptional with was the Cybersecurity One of the Year awards. And I can't thank Carmen enough. Like, It's enabled me to bring my family to the US. But aside that, it's also been able to give me a lot of opportunities to spread that spotlight to the things that I'm working on, the work that I'm doing to help other women. I know we're going to talk more about that in the future and maybe in the course of this conversation, but also being able to be seen because Carmen is doing some amazing work to spotlight women like me across the world is also inspiring thousands of women in Africa to pursue careers in cybersecurity. And just to also share some statistics as well, in Africa, although women make up 50% of the population, we only make up 9% of the workforce, which means only one in every 10 cybersecurity professionals you find on the continent is a woman. So winning that award was a huge statement, not just for me, but being able to show other women, like Carmen said, that if she can do it, I too can do it. I mean, I am someone who is definitely not a tomboy, right? I wear my long waves. I have my makeup on. And so this tells also girls a lot of things. It says that you can come just as you are. There's no real mold here. They're all stereotypes. And with all of the visibility and the awesomeness that women are able to, platforms like what Carmen is doing is able to show to the younger generation, we definitely will not have the challenge of whether or not we can attract women into cyber.
Okay, oh, that. Wow, there's so much. Thank you for sharing the statistic. I want to remind our audience briefly. This is live, so if you have a question for Carmen or if you have a question for Confidence, please do drop those in the chat below on LinkedIn or on YouTube. I think on our LinkedIn stream we might have had a hiccup, but on YouTube we should be solid. So drop those in. We'll bring those up live. But I want to go back to one of your statistics that you shared there, Confidence. Have you started to see positive change yet? You said that it was a lower percentage of women working in cybersecurity in Africa right now. And I asked because a lot of the conferences I've been to in the past year, whether it was ISC Squared or ISACA or RSA, I've seen large delegations of people from various parts of Africa who've wanted to come and promote cybersecurity. Are you starting to see that positive change in the workforce?
Absolutely. And I'm just going to also say that I never knew that the same sort of trolling I received when I started the Cyber Girls Fellowship is literally what I am still receiving, by the way, is literally what Carmen experienced as well. So there is nothing regional about the challenges that women face. Both from the perspective of whether or not women belong in cyber or whether or not women are interested in cybersecurity. I would share something. Just last year, a young man told me that we shouldn't be forcing this thing, that women do not belong here. Women belong in industries where emotions are required, and that able-bodied men are the ones that are needed in cyber. So we get this all the time. Just last week, there was another troll again that just started off a campaign against the work we're doing, and it's now moved off from the part of, okay, you're just trying to get women in, to the fact that, okay, you're providing this very quality training and you're excluding men. And I'm showing them that if anything, you need to be able to see your privilege and also support women to come in here, because what we are trying to do is close the skills and
Mm-hmm.
gender gap. So I was very relieved to hear that, Carmen, you experienced, or I experiencing exactly what I experienced. And just going back to your question, Kayne, the work we've been doing has grown, of course, with the exposure that Carmen brought to the work I was doing and the kind of global partnerships that was able to enable us unlock. We've created something that is very valuable and very helpful for women on the African continent to get into cyber. Because of the work we've done as well, we've gotten the World Bank, for example, to feature Cyber Girls Fellowship, which again I haven't mentioned before now, and I've been making references to, but I haven't exactly said what it is. Cyber Girls Fellowship is Africa's biggest cybersecurity training and mentorship program for young women. So we attract women between the ages of 18 to 28, and then we give them cybersecurity training for 8 months and get them into the workforce. So we've basically been signposted as one of those trainings that are really doing amazing work to get women into the workforce and changing the dynamics, especially in countries like Nigeria. That particular white paper from the World Bank said we were contributing to that change. To countries like Kenya, for example, and to countries like South Africa. And just going back to Carmen's point as well, I have often opined that we shouldn't give women opportunities in cybersecurity because we are women. No, nobody wants that. We definitely want skilled women, and that is where capacity building programs like 100 days, 100 women in cyber is doing, and of course cyber girls fellowship is also doing. We need to be able to skill women up and have those gender focused programs that then gives women the skills to compete equally, to compete fairly and equitably, to be able to access the cybersecurity opportunities. So I would definitely say while the numbers are changing and shifting, we're still a far cry from where we should be. We should definitely be intensifying efforts, putting in more work, bringing in more evangelism to ensure, and exactly more funding to make sure that we're able to skill more women in and bring them into the cyber workforce, because it's something that we all need. It's something that makes a whole ecosystem safer, and is definitely something that makes all of our communities safer and more economically stable.
So I have a couple other questions that I had in mind, but I want to toss this one out to Carmen, and then Confidence, you also can come in on this one. Because listening to you both talk, I've heard about a culture of gatekeeping more than anything else. So that's at least how I'm going to phrase it. Goodness knows there are far more words I could use to describe a toxic culture. But you go to any cybersecurity labor market report, and there's anywhere between some low number in the 100,000s to some hyperbolic number in the millions of a gap between the number of jobs that are available and the number of people who are available to fill those jobs. And often I've felt like my career in cybersecurity in the past 30 years has been like an extended Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, where their definition of insanity is you keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So both of you have seen this gatekeeping. What do you think is, we'll go to Carmen first. What do you think is really necessary to overcome that? It feels like a cultural barrier. It's not a technical barrier that we're talking about here. We're talking about a people problem. Any thoughts on what it would take?
It's any mindset change, right? I think we're still in the process of changing the mindset, and that takes a long time. So I think collectively we need to have these conversations, and we have to bring it up to everyone. Whether you're employer, whether you are a colleague, anyone who's working in the field, to better understand how we continue supporting and bringing this to our attention, so we can remove the biases, so we can not be judgmental. There is something that is like people not even aware of. Even I know about promoting women in a higher positions. There's still gap there. There's still, if you look at how many men get promoted versus how many women, and how many women actually are brave enough to ask for promotion, for example. Men typically don't have that issue, but women still kind of like, oh, I have to be perfect to ask for promotion. So we've got a lot of things. We all have work to do. Women have work to do as well, for us to actually be braver, to step into, and ask for what we want. But also, I think everybody has to be aware, if we want to bring more women into more diverse mindsets, right? I mean, we need to have diverse mindsets, especially now. Look at AI coming into the picture on both defense and offense side, right? So please, anyone who actually is working in the field, think about what we're doing in building the future, defense, professional, to defend us, to protect us, to keep us safe, even once we retire and we're out of the picture. Who are those people? They're going to be, carrying the flags for us and be those defenders, right? I think there's so many different areas and it's taking a while. It's taking a while to get across that.
Okay, and Confidence, what do you think for just overcoming that cultural hurdle that you yourself have seen? But what's the larger social conversation we need to have here?
I think the large social conversation we need to have is around respect. Clearly, that's something that we're really deficient on, and in our industry, respect for women and the competence, and we we have so many stories, and we can, if you meet 10 women and ask them this question, to basically share what their experience has been, from their peers to their superiors, around how they see them and how they're able to take in their judgments, how much they're brought into the picture on things. You would find that a lot of women are suffering a lack of respect, professional respect, in settings that should definitely be professional. And the YC's report, basically, even for last year, just really expounds on this. And it's
Mhm.
something that is known. We need to have that full conversation. If women are not respected, then even when we get to attract women and bring them in, like we're doing in droves, we can't keep them past certain levels, because we're not respecting them enough to bring them into meetings and hear what they have to say. We're kicking them at the side of the car. We're not promoting them, because maybe they're not able, or they're not really going to advocate for themselves or toot their own horns. I mean, it doesn't come naturally to a lot of women. And so the people who are able to are then able to get the upper hand. So that respect and just giving acknowledgement to sometimes our unconscious biases, because some of us feel, oh, we are very open to diversity, but we have unconscious biases. We question women's competence when in places that if a man walked in and said they could do certain technical things, we will not ask them what their credentials are. We would believe them as it is. But when a woman does the same thing, we're checking, how many years have you done this? Do you have that certification? What experience you have doing this? So those are things that we are doing over time that are taking a major hit on women's confidence, even when they come in, and it affects the rate of growth and their mental well-being while in the industry. So we need to have these very large conversations around respect, around moving from talking to doing, just as Carmen had spoken, around concrete steps to changing cultures within our organizations, around concrete steps to even invest in not just programs that bring women in, but programs that keep women in the workforce.
I think that's a great point you keep there around retention, which is often something we forget about when we're talking about the skills gap. But I want to go to technical skills, because you brought up a really good point there. Several. I want to try and tie a thread here together, because you were talking about if women present a technical, they say they have technical skills, they're going to get credential checked, whereas men don't. And Carmen, you were talking about if she can see it, she can be it. So I want to bring up Confidence. You wrote a book about API security, which that is a detail-oriented field. And so, can you tell our viewers a little bit about the book, and also, the, I don't know if we can zoom in on that cover there, but you had to make a really conscientious decision about that cover, right?
Absolutely. So when the book was in the process, I was writing it and everything, and it got to the point to sort of pick a cover. Um, as a typical woman, I was getting shy. I was like, you know what, my name can just be there. It's a nice thing to do. Just have my name. I'm going to go with the design that just has my name, not the one that has my image on it. And then I remember that I had once read a very amazing cybersecurity book. I enjoyed this book so much, so I went to research the author. I had no clue the author was a woman. And then when I found out, I was so excited. I was like, this is amazing. And for me, that was a moment that was both inspiring and also very elevating for me as a person. And so for me, I didn't want to miss the chance to, by a glance, be able to tell whoever picks up a copy of this book, because you could see Confidence Staveley and not know, who I am. I just wanted to be able to send very strong messages. First, that I was a woman, and so if a woman of across the world gets to see this, they're able to be inspired, to just know that they can do this as well. Technical knowledge doesn't have a gender preference. There's nothing about our brains that says that women can't do technical things. No, as a matter of fact, women's brains, research has shown, is just trained to do really hard things, right? So we can do these things. And so I wanted to share that very, very loud message. So once at a glance, people see this, people are able to see that a woman wrote this, and a woman who is very much in her own self and not trying to fit any mold wrote the book and is able to confidently share her knowledge. Because that's another key thing that we may not realize is a knock-on effect of the fact that women are typically lacking in, or rather women are not respected as much as they should in our industry, is that it takes a hit on your confidence. You begin to question your competence. Do I have enough to share? Do I know enough? Am I enough? All of those enough questions do not allow women to take on this sort of project. And just to share a bit, this book is making history already, because I am currently the first Nigerian woman author of a technical cybersecurity book. And I just want to be able to make sure that while this is a statement, thank you so much, Carmen, while this is a huge accomplishment for me, that I am never going to be alone anymore for longer down the road, that there are more women like me, more women across the world that are just inspired. And the good thing is, I just announced that it was published, and I started getting letters, I started getting DMs telling me from women that just seeing that was able to remind me to go back and pick up my book project. Just seeing you do that, I definitely want to write this book that has been on my mind. And that's exactly what the goal is. So for me, I'm very excited, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity to not just help people secure their APIs, but also inspire more women writers.
Yeah, and Carmen, do you think we're going to see more of this based on Confidence's success of her book, that we're going to see more people who possibly come through your program to produce books?
100%. Confidence was absolutely right, saying that, wow, you have already inspired so many women, but this, having a book out and then confidently just say, this is my book, this is how you do it. Yes, I'm a woman, buy it. This is going to be helpful to you because it's really that good. And 100%, I think we need more brave women like you, Confidence, to just go out there, share your knowledge, and be who you are, and speak the truth. And yeah, I'm super excited. 100%.
Fantastic. Well, I hope we see more of these. And I'll remind our viewers, this is live. So if you want, drop a question in the chat, or on YouTube, I guess the chat somewhere. Anyway, drop a question in the chat. We'll take it live. And I want to move next to API security, which is what we're talking about here. And it's an area of expertise for Confidence. And I want to chat about the reality of these risks, not just the technical risks. I want to put them in context. Like the CEO of Optus in Australia was ousted recently because of two separate events. First, they'd had a public and unprotected API, and it was used to expose the personal data of 8 million Australians. And then they had an unrelated network outage, and if you're not familiar with Optus, they are a telecommunications provider, and they had an outage and 8 million records lost. So they now face regulatory fines because emergency services weren't available during that time. And that's in addition to the regulatory and legal actions that they're currently facing due to the data breach. So from your perspective, Confidence, what challenges do you think executives have in understanding the reputational or the legal risks associated with what's somewhat thought of being esoteric, API security?
That's a very interesting question. First, for anyone on this live stream that may not know what APIs are, I'm going to use this analogy to basically explain it to you. So, if you walk into a restaurant, right, and you would be approached by a waiter, right? That waiter is going to take your order and then go to the kitchen, make sure that the order is made, or your meal is made to order, and then that waiter is going to come back with your meals and serve it to you. So that restaurant, you can liken it to the applications or the apps that you use on your phone or on the web, generally speaking. And then the chef, you can liken that chef to the back end application and the whole stack of technologies that enables you to hail that ride, to know where on the map you're supposed to be going to, and all of the works and all of the things that are possible with technology that we have today. But APIs are that waiter. APIs are the connectors. They enable applications and softwares across the world to communicate with each other very fluidly. And so, because of that very connector role, that very large surface that APIs get to do, or that very large work APIs get to do for businesses, they are targeted by cyber criminals. But then the irony of it is that they are often overlooked as well. So there's this plumbing system we have, that's connecting us, across the city, but we're not taking care of the plumbing system. We're just getting water out of our taps and we are happy, but that plumbing system, we're not taking care of it. And that's what we see across the world. Sometimes it could look like what you just described to me, where APIs exist, but we do not know that they exist. And so we also do not know what kind of data they carry. Are they fetching sensitive information or not? If they're fetching sensitive information, are we treating it with the same level of risk management that we should when we identify that it's carrying sensitive information? And that's sort of some of the key issues that we're not seeing executives across the world give enough attention. Another key issue is that because of how APIs are widely used, right? The attack surface is very wide.
Hmm.
You're talking, say, an API that is connected to another service provider, and that service provider is also getting information from another one. So it's a large surface. But then we've also seen that this also leads to APIs that are not even authenticating people before information is accessed. So the example that you shared earlier on, where sensitive information is obtained through an API, but we're not authenticating the user, and that looks like this. You have someone show up at your front door, right? And the person knocks at your door and opens the door because the door isn't even locked in the first place. So you don't have an opportunity to say, hey, who's there? What's your name? And what are you here for? That's exactly what our APIs are doing when they're actually serving sensitive information. And in that context, I would like to maybe liken that to if my house was a vault, I definitely will not. I had millions of dollars or thousands of dollars in my house. I would leave the door open. And that's exactly what we're doing with APIs that are carrying sensitive information but do not have authentication. Another key issue we are also seeing is that APIs generally, a lot of the attacks we're seeing is they're not even authorizing. So what does that mean? We've talked about the house, coming into the house, right? You're not saying who you are. You're just opening the door and coming in. But then again, when you come in, which part of my house are you allowed to go to? Are you allowed to come to the master room and take a dump in my toilet? Are you allowed to come make coffee with my very nice espresso machine? What are you allowed to do and what are you not allowed to do? And so what we are seeing with APIs as well is that we are just allowing people those, we are not implementing permissions well enough, and because we're not doing this, we are giving the cyber criminals a field party. And I've described all of this, and it might seem like it's a lot, but I say often that because 90% of the attacks that affect APIs are really concentrated on these three things I've mentioned, which is lack of authentication or broken authentication, lack of authorization, and then excess exposure of sensitive data. If you're able to address these three issues, most of the attacks will be prevented. And this is where we need to help executives zoom in on what's really important, putting in those governance, risk, and compliance measures that are sort of like going to be guardrails and help organizations become safer. That is what I would definitely say we need to help executives understand in plain English as much as possible, with demonstrated examples as well, and walking them through how this affects the business.
So I want to thank our viewers for now dropping questions in the chat. Let's take this first one somewhat quick, and then I have a question for both of you, just listening to your points. So the question from the viewer is, what made you focus on API security for your book?
Just like I've narrated to you, a lot of other parts, are sort of like a lot of other parts of application security are given enough attention, right? I basically love API hacking, right? Because it's something that I believe that we can teach both offensive players and defenders as well. It's also one of those areas where we cut across and also reach out to developers and ensure that developers are also on board with security. So for me, it comes naturally to also work in cross-functional teams. And so APIs are like my core thing to do. And I love the fact that they're would I say they're underestimated? They're not given enough focus. And for me, I just wanted to throw the light on that area that is so important, but yet not getting the attention and the spotlight that it requires for changes to be made in that space. Very simple issues are in abundance in how APIs are vulnerable. And so for me, it was also just making sure that I'm able to show how these things pan out to become bigger attacks, and just bringing the spotlight to something that I believe can greatly affect the security of from the biggest to even the smallest organizations that are building tools and building software.
So I think that is, thank you for the viewer's question there about why API security for the book. If you have questions still, drop them in the chat and we will take them live. And listening to Confidence and also Carmen earlier, I want to bring in something you brought in as a theme around communication. Because I think these risks are known among the technical community, as Confidence has just said. And in a lot of your talking about them, I watched you use examples. And I think about communication skills, and I think about what happened at Optus and what's happened at other businesses as well that have had, this disconnect where the technical team knows there's something wrong and yet they're not getting through to the next level team. So, question for both of you: do you think there's a different way that either cybersecurity or GRC teams could better highlight the risks associated with unsecured or unprotected or unauthorized, unauthenticated APIs?
Speaking of communication, it's so needed, right? We can't survive without communication. And even so more, I know for years we've been talking about how important it is for CISOs to have the really great communication skills to be able to translate whatever the technical teams are bringing to him, translate it to business leaders, and then making decision based on that. So that has been well known for a while. In general, I think people just either, yeah, you can learn communications on some levels, but I think some are just better than others. So I think those that are in a position that are liaisons or translators, so to say, find the right people to place in those positions. I think if you are leading the organization or executive manager, put right people in those positions, because then you're going to know what's going on, right? And you'll be able to make right decisions based on that information. That's my thing. Just know people's skills, understand how well they communicate, and when you hire people in those positions, 100%. Some will tell you exactly. They're not going to talk around the subject, and you're going to say, okay, I still don't know what you're talking about, or it's still too much information. Just bring it down. What is going on, and then let's make a decision. So yeah, that's my thing. Hire the right people, that can communicate well.
Okay, fantastic. And Confidence, from your perspective, clearly you've had to communicate this upwards before, more than once, I'm sure.
Yeah, I find, just adding to the amazing thing that, amazing points that Carmen has raised around finding the square pegs for the square holes, I would also want to add that quantifying these risks, I think, really just speaks very closely towards important to the business, and relating that to the business is, or whatever is important to the stakeholder you're speaking to. So for example, if I was speaking to a developer, what's important to a developer would most likely be different from what's important to say the CFO of an organization, right? So being able to relate what you're speaking about and why what you're speaking about is important, not in what's important to you, but what's important to that person, is a very key way I find communicating can be very effective. And also putting that in some sort of scenario based settings can also be very helpful. And I say this quite a lot, that if you have a couple of tabletops in a year, just adding something around API security. If, for example, this is the core part of your business to just deliver services over software solutions, it's very important to include this, because those tabletops can then walk decision makers through how these things can happen and how you're actively protecting against them. So if that's added and then you're reporting about it frequently, it just helps to in bits help executives and help the people you're communicating to better understand what the risks are and how they do materialize. So I believe that that communication is very tied to who you're speaking to. It then affects how you're delivering it.
And I love that you've brought in tabletop exercises as a big fan and
Mhm.
also former
Mhm.
facilitator of tabletop exercises. I mean, I
I
still keep
love them.
backdoors and breaches on my desk,
Ooh.
which is so much fun. It would raise that, though, that some companies might not even have this in their risk register. Like this might not even be an influence tool risk. But I want to go
Yeah.
to a technical question from an audience member first. And the question is, what's the best approach to discovering? Oh dear, this is an open-ended question here. What's the best approach to discovering all the APIs in your organization, including shadow APIs? Ooh.
Okay, so this question is one I'm going to answer from both a technical and non-technical perspective. The first way is I found from experience that um, we're not talking to developers enough. And we just sort of as security professionals always come off as people who have the whips in their hands. We're always just telling developers what they're not doing right, what they're not doing right. We're not necessarily um talking to them enough to basically form a collaboration or partnership where we are more enablers than we are regulators of what they're doing. So I believe that just speaking to developers in the first place, they know these systems more than anyone else. They built them. Just being able to get them to help with even you know uh, inventorying your APIs, because that's a major issue. That's exactly what you're talking about here. Organizations do not know the APIs they have in full. Like they don't know all of the APIs they have. And how can you possibly protect what you don't know? It just won't happen, right? Just knowing what those APIs are, first and foremost, and then being able to prioritize which ones to allocate resources to protect, especially when they are holding sensitive information. So that whole inventorying exercise is not just one we need to rely on technology for, but also one that we need to reach out and basically collaborate with the development or engineering teams to then be able to know what these APIs are, where they are, what they're doing, and be able to inventory them. But then you can also add on technology. There are a lot of technology tools right now that scan the enterprise and basically find these APIs and help us add them to the register. But a third key thing that I believe we're not doing enough is we're not testing enough. There's a lot of data to show that we're not doing pen testing and vulnerability assessment exercises enough for APIs. We are deploying APIs at the speed of, almost on a daily basis, multiple APIs on a weekly basis. But are we testing at the same frequency? It's highly unlikely that we are. So that whole intentionality and building our vulnerability programs in such a way that at intervals, aside using automated tools to test our APIs, we're also using manual efforts to discover and test the APIs in our environment.
Yeah, that is a very well-rounded, and thank you for the viewer for dropping that question in. We've got about 5 minutes left in the show, so if you've got final questions for Carmen or for Confidence, please drop them here. And Confidence, in listening to you, I was thinking about the recent report about SolarWinds, and goodness knows SolarWinds is the thing that we just keep getting reports about. And in it, the whistleblower alleged that at Microsoft they knew about the API vulnerability, which was a SAML golden authentication token that you could create yourself. They knew about it for years, and yet developers were not incentivized for fixing security vulnerabilities. Rather, they were incentivized for shipping new product. How do we move past that at an individual contributor level to really reduce the risks of the next SolarWinds level vulnerability being introduced into the ecosystem?
Whew, Kane, thank you so much for that question. I love it. And I love it particularly because I think as an industry, I mean, the entire tech industry, not just cyber or information security, we've sort of always abdicated some of our challenges to just tools. We could buy our way out of everything. We can't buy our way into a culture that does the right thing, that actually incentivizes developers to be security conscious, that rewards them for finding bugs. But as we have it today, we're rewarding them for shipping things out. So why should they put a stop somewhere to find a bug when we don't have a culture for rewarding that sort of behavior? And let's be very honest. I mean, all of us are parents right now, on this live, right, on this screen right now. When you want your child to do something that is right, I overreact when he does something I love. He helps an old man carry a bag. I make such a big fuss about it. I am super excited. I'm rewarding that because I want that child to do more of that. That's the same analogy that plays out when we're dealing with developers and just engineering teams in general. If we want a culture, we need to work towards it. We can't buy our way out of it. We need to be able to do that in both our processes and our governance requirements. We need to be able to show developers by our actions that we actually value security in the way that we reward them. It's not about just ticking some Jira tickets and just getting off to a nice weekend. But what if there is a bug?
Mhm.
Is that developer punished for being slower at delivering on the deliverable because he needed to fix a bug? How are we incentivizing security champions programs within organizations? Are they giving the visibility from the top? Remember that management supporting these things just really adds credibility and adds authority to it. So I want to be able to, by answering this question, say first and foremost, that whole change management needs to come from the top. Two,
Mhm.
it needs to be ingrained in the culture. It needs to be intentional because right now it is not. And no good thing happens, by accident. No good change happens by accident. The weeds will grow by accident, but the good roses, we need to be able to grow it and make sure that it comes up. And that's where the culture needs to really change. We need to be able to incentivize everyone on the team to be a security champion. We need to teach developers how to hack. If developers have an understanding of how security incidents, or not, maybe not adding an if else, not adding an else in the if statement, and not missing out on certain things, what the impact could be. When developers can play out those things because they know how those vulnerabilities can be exploited, they'll be better aware and they would have those secure coding practices we've been teaching for years actually done.
That is a
Yeah.
fantastic answer. And Carmen, I want to get your take on this one as well, like changing the culture associated with security. So we're not just shipping buggy stuff and hoping to fix it in post or when somebody does a bug bounty. What else could we do? What else are you counseling women and others in cybersecurity to do?
Yeah, no, I want to kind of take that point Confident was talking about this, the culture has to change instead of, because I've worked on a lot of different product development teams, managed a lot of software development in the past, and if you are coming from cybersecurity or infosec perspective, you're always a bad guy in a room, even when you're putting the building architecture, right? They don't want to listen to you when you show up. It's like, who invited her? Right. It's we have to change that because you have, I understand in the way the development teams, they're just basically told, go get it done, we need to get to the market, we'll talk about security later, but that's not how you build a product, right? Secure product. So it really has to come from the top. The company leadership has to say, we have to put security first. This is going to build a resilient company for us. There is, good product. Business, basically, this is going to increase revenue. If we have a secure product, it's going to be good in the long run. But yeah, it's a culture change that needs to happen. Leadership has to be on board. They have to talk to developers. They have to support it.
I love that message of making security a competitive advantage and about, making it a business advantage rather than just making this all about just the technology. But with that,
Yeah.
we've hit time. So I want to thank you for being on the show today, Carmen, and also Confidence. You were both absolutely fantastic. And if you're watching this at home or at your office and you know somebody we should have on the show, or alternatively, if you're that person who should be on the show, drop me a note in the comments or just DM me directly. With that, Confidence, Carmen, I really want to thank you again for joining us and thank our audience for tuning in to today's live stream.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for having me come in as well. Thank you for giving me the opportunity as well to be here.
It's been fantastic.